find if we make this thing an interactive conversation. So with that being said, y'all notice how I even turned my voice down before I start talking? With that being said, if you come up with something that's a really big question, by all means, let me know. We can dig into it. 1 second. Because, of course, everything has to go. So what we're going to talk about today. Again, I'm Chris Gray. I'm Senior Director of Field Engineering with Halcyon, which, you know, we were one of the first companies that came out following the Colonial Pipeline incident, really to say we want to address ransomware. I'm not going to be an EDR. I'm not going to be anything else. I'm going to focus in on that niche problem because, let's face it, it lives everywhere. Oops. So what are we going to cover today? Beautiful. So what we're going to cover, as you can read there, is what's the current landscape? What are we looking at? What are we seeing? What are the bad things that are happening? Number two, we're going to talk about why ransomware is winning. And that's not necessarily a truthful situation, but you know, we'll understand it. And then number three, we're going to talk about ransomware recommendation for defenders. All you guys, what should you do? Now, we're going to start this thing off with everyone kind of shaking your head and repeating three things. They're as good as you. They're extremely organized. And the same stuff that we've been telling everyone to do for the last 20 years. Since all this was on top of my head in a different color, still matters, and people, we still are awful at it. So I want to bring all these things up. So let's jump in. The average impact. You can go and do your own Google search, and you'll see everything from about 2.13 million up to the better part of 8 million. But the average we're seeing is about $5 million per ransomware incident. That includes the cost of ransomware, that includes the cost of the outage, the cost of fixing things, the cost of the IR firms, where you're going to go. What it doesn't necessarily count for is how much your insurance premiums are going to jump up next year as a result of doing this, etc. But $5 million. I want you to remember that number because that becomes highly indicative of what you do to fix things, because everyone in here has been in security for a while. We all know you hit the end of the budget cycle. People are telling you we can't do these things. We don't have the money to do these things. We can't do these things. Do me a favor. Keep that $5 million written on the side of the wall, because that is not hyperbole. That is, you know, that's kind of where we live. The next piece that hops out on there is the 22 days on average. We'll talk about a scenario where this goes. That is on average. My company also, we do instant response. I'm working with one customer right now. They're on month 7. So 22 days is average. And I will tell you, for a lot of the people to get to that 22 days, does anyone want to take a guess what they said yes to? No, they said yes to paying the ransom. So this is a real thing. And last but not least, that 200 groups, that's the number of ransomware as a service groups that we see out there. That's not necessarily talking about the ones who might have some political or some personal agenda that they're doing this. These are the people that this is a business for. And that's 200 plus, and that also then busts into the affiliates and all the, you know, players downstream. Any questions on any of this? Yes, sir?
Was that the initial attack vector, ransomware or social engineering?
There's no, yes. The answer is to get into the box. I'll go wherever I want to. You got people who are like Scattered Spider, and they excel at the social engineering side of the house. You have people like Akira, and they love the fact that you're using a couple of different brands of firewalls that have CISA Kevs that have been out there for a year and a half that no one's touched, and they're just owning them left, right, and sideways. So how they get in, it's one of 6 dozen ways. But let's talk about that. Who are the players in this space? So the first one you got, exactly what you're talking about, the initial access brokers. Initial access brokers, what makes ransomware in a lot of ways dangerous right now is, as a ransomware actor, I don't have to be in charge of everything. I have an entire ecosystem of people who are running around scanning for vulnerabilities on the web, trying to find targets, poking those targets a little bit to see whether or not they'll fall down if I poke them, if they're vulnerable. I have the ones who are actually busting into initial access. I'm the ransomware actor, and I don't even know your name. By the time it comes to me, there's been an affiliate network of God only knows how many IABs that have sat down and played this game. And when they hand you to me, they're handing me a rooted environment. They're already in. They've already done their thing. Now, the next place that comes over here is ransomware as a service providers. What does this mean? This means these are the people who provide infrastructure. I don't even need to do this on my own computers. I don't even need to do this from my own house, wherever this needs to be. There are people out there who will rent me infrastructure and let me do these kinds of things. There are people out there that will rent me space where I'm exfiltrating all of your data, and they will freely let me park it there. And they'll have some sort of a little requirement up there that says you're not allowed to use any of this for illegal purposes. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But as long as you pay my bill, I'm not going to look real close. So this is the point to get in here. From a ransomware, we think of like that these are these shadowy organizations out there that have a data center somewhere in Eastern Europe and doing their thing. I'm telling you, no, the guy that got into your box lives in Brazil. The ransomware service provider is in the cloud. They're a wonderful Amazon customer. And I'm working from my grandma's house in Hoboken. And this is the way this works. The next one that we get out there are the affiliates. Again, the affiliates, these are the people that are doing this. From a ransomware as a service provider, this is the Akira, this is the Play, this is the Medusa, this is whoever this is, that they're out there looking for their own targets, but they're also there and available for you to come in and rent me and my time. These are professional organizations. Remember when I said, yes, they're that good? This morning, they had a stand-up meeting. All the developers who are working on blowing holes in Microsoft Defender are over here. All the CrowdStrike hunters are over here. You're a project manager. You're the Jira admin who's got the boards up, and we're tracking progress and where this is going. Don't think of these guys like, how did that joke go about 10 years ago? The 40-year-old virgin drinking Mountain Dew in his mama's basement? It's not that situation. These are businesses. There is a file out on YouTube, you can still go find, where someone went to I believe it was Ukrainian actually, but went to a ransomware vendor and said, can you buy a Lamborghini before lunch? And the answer is yes, in cash, he can. So Ken, please keep in mind, this is professional. That's why this is a real thing. You're not fighting just onesie-twosie people kind of a situation. This is a business model, and it's every bit as profitable as what you're doing today. The last but not least are not the last, but then we have the crypto guys, the money. How do I get the money? Almost any ransomware ticket that you get that ever shows up on your hard drive after you've been hit gives you wonderful instructions on how to buy Bitcoin and get them to the bad guys. They don't want cash. They don't want property in Tahiti. They want you to buy these Bitcoins so that can then be washed, twisted, turned, cashed out, and they can do what they want to while basically thumbing their nose at the world financial systems and making things untrackable. And the last but not least down there, the command and control. This is really kind of important. Because it kind of shows that some parts of our industry are selling out, acknowledging the inevitable, whatever you want to. These are where you're starting to see legitimate ISPs that are partnering up and selling out and letting you operate from within their infrastructure. So they're kind of like those RAS platform people, but this is where you're going into somebody someone that you may actually be buying services off of. Now, of course, we'll wrap that all in legalese, we'll do all the things, but off you go. There we go. Let's talk about power rankings. We have a Gartner report. I'm not going to talk about my company. Anybody wants to talk about it, I'll tell you about it, and I'll tell you where you can get all these graphics and understand who's playing and where. But my point being, there is basically a 4-square quadrant where we track who is innovative, who is really good, who is professional versus who is not as professional, all the things. If we go from there, next one over. Damn it. There we go. We're going to look at the forerunners right now. Who are the big dogs in the field? Anyone ever heard of Akira? Pray that you don't ever hear more than that. Akira is out there. I do IR around ransomware, and I'm here to tell you pretty much every day I have someone whose insurance company points them over towards me and says, help me out. And I ask them 2 questions, and then I tell them, okay, so Akira got you, and you're here, and this is what you're being told. How'd you know? Because Akira is ubiquitous right now. This is what they do, and they're one of those very professional organizations that I told you that always say the same thing. They follow a process. If they weren't stealing from me, they're probably the kind of company from a professionalism standpoint that you'd want to do business with. Lynx is a big one. It tends to be a little bit more on the hangover side. They've been around for a while. The big one with them is they love command line stuff. They get in and sneak around a lot of the time with their attacks and some of the things there. I've had people that they actually saw something going on and thought it was insider threat because of the way they play. Medusa's out there. Medusa's been out there. This is a very prolific player in the space. And they are a huge RAS. They came out in 2021, and they have consistently stayed in the top since. INC ransomware. This says they use VSS. Everyone does. But they've also been linked to a number of attacks. When I'm saying VSS, one of their favorite tricks to do is they really go out and target your backups. So everyone's going to target them. They've got it down to an art where they go and they reduce, slash and burn everything to the point of it. Sure, you have backups. And we'll talk about that more here in a minute. The next one, you got Killing. That's one that evolved. It's a combination of a couple. They are one of the ones that actually target Linux environments a lot. A lot of ransomware folks don't want to really target Linux environments because, well, let's be honest with it. Windows likes to talk. Windows makes things work, and Windows has this wonderful piece of functionality. Everyone say it with me: PowerShell. When you have PowerShell, you have root. You are God on the box, and you can do amazing things without having the privileges that you should have to do this. And off they go. Unix environments tend to be administered by crusty people who are angry at the world and understand RBAC a lot better and play those games. But that being said, they play that. SafePay, these guys have been around for a while. They do all their things. They are really aggressive. I love that they call themselves Safe Play because there's nothing safe about them. These are the ones who will come after you, and they will tell you, and they will call you every 15 seconds and try and drive you into a panic to get you to sell off. Dragon Force, Play was Safe Play was Play. Who knows? They kind of evolved out. But the points being, if you go back and look back a couple of months, anyone want to tell me a group that you've seen in the news all over the place that you don't see their name up there? Starts with an L. Lockbit. Lockbit was one that everyone knew about. Lockbit. What happened to Lockbit? They got taken down. Bad guys came in, went after them. There were, supposedly a few threats of kinetic responses. For those of you who don't translate that into, I'm going to shoot you with a gun. All these kind of things happened. Lockbit went away. Guess what I got the first case of this last week? Lockbit 5. Honey, they're home, they're back, they've come back, they pulled themselves together. It did cause a big gap in the ecosystem, though, because the guy who invented Lockbit was really proud of it. He had a huge affiliate network. When they kind of fell apart, all the affiliates fell on each other. There was a bit of a cannibalistic streak going on until these other players came in. The point coming out of this changes on the regular. But we do see some perennial favorites that never seem to leave. All right, cybercrime 2024. Well, I'm not going to talk 2025 because we're still in the middle of it. But 3,158 ransomware attacks, 3,204 data breaches. Anybody want to tell me why those numbers feel weird?
They seem low.
How are you going to do ransomware if you don't do a data breach? Which translates into someone's not giving me good numbers, which translates into we still don't talk about data breaches unless we have to. Ransomware attacks, we don't talk about those either unless we have to. So there is a high level of how these numbers coincide with one another, but you can look at the chart there and see kind of where they break out. The biggest industries there that you can see that are out there: critical manufacturing, healthcare, government, financial, and IT. I don't think that should surprise anyone. Some of the things to do, keep in mind, though, is manufacturing. That's OT. OT's hard to do. Why would someone be popping all the OT? Because IT and OT are two different things. IT security, OT security are two different things. It's hard to make them play in there, and the OT security environment is one where it can be pretty easy to hit, to be thoroughly honest with you. I'm not saying these are the biggest from the perspective of the amount of money they get out of them, but they are soft targets, if you will. You ever do healthcare security and you find someone that's got a certified system that's running on Windows NT and they can't change it? Yeah. $814 million in ransomware payments reported. That's an important word. Come on. I'm trying, I promise. There we go. Maybe. There we go. So 2024. There we go. We saw basically 11% increase in ransomware attacks, and yet a 35% decrease in the number of them that were paid. That begs a really interesting question. If it's happening to more and more people, why aren't we seeing? Why aren't they paying? So let's talk about that one for a second. I pushed the button and the lights came up, so maybe that's. There we go. So let's talk about this a little bit. Number one, cybersecurity is getting better. People are getting better at this kind of stuff. That really translates into, if you're doing this well, backups, backups, backups. People are actually starting to get very prolific in doing the backups. I will tell you, if I had to count 10 people who come to me that tell me they have good immutable backups and that they can recover from it, I can probably count on one or two fingers how many of them are right. And the main reason behind that is they have never pressure tested their situation. They think they're good until it all goes. I give an example of a disaster recovery exercise that I did when I was an auditor. They came in, they were so proud of themselves, they restored, and then one of the DBAs like, yeah, we're great, except for the fact we don't have the index files. Anybody understands databases? Congratulations, you now have a metric ton of unorganized data and no way to turn it into anything meaningful. That's not a successful recovery. This is kind of the same way on that. Also, law enforcement. Law enforcement will continue and always push you not to pay the ransom. They will do this, and a lot of people, because of the industries they're in, they kind of play that game. Or they just don't talk about them and tell them. That second one's where you see LockBit and AlphaV, where they both kind of departed the scene, left a vacuum. What that translated into is what's left behind are their affiliates. Their affiliates are not as good. They are prolific, but they're not using as good of technology, as good of code, as good of capabilities. So they're going to get in. They're going to target smaller orgs. You know, they're just not as professional across the board. And then as a result, there's just not as much ransom that's being paid because they're not as successful. The attempts go up, the success factor goes down. Affiliates are scattered, making more off groups. There are about 50 million industries that I could point out there where we choose who we are, we choose who our friends are, we get angry at each other, we don't talk to each other anymore. I hate to say this, but business is a lot like middle school for a lot of reasons. This happens in the affiliate networks on the regular. They get in, they start working with each other, then they get angry because someone did something wrong for someone else, and now I'm not going to talk to you, I'm going to go talk to him. And we go, every time they do that, that slows them down because they've got to get their tooling back in place, all their communications, et cetera. With some of the big players falling out, we saw a lot of that churn. And the other one there, again, goes back to the affiliate networks. We saw higher numbers of attacks against smaller victims. Why would they pay less? The ransomware people know how much money you make. They're not going to ask a company that makes $1 million to pay a $500,000 ransom. They're going to come to you and say, you owe me 50 grand. So whenever these affiliates fall out, don't attack the big targets, they go after the smaller ones, they ask for smaller numbers. And the quantity versus quality equation comes into play as to how much money gets brought. Does this make sense to everyone? 2025 is going to be a different story. They're back. The big players are back. Akira's going crazy, plays everywhere. Medusa's woken up. There's a lot of these where they have fulfilled their vision of getting back onto the game, and money's out there. The average ransomware right now fee is, anyone? $350,000 is where it was in the first half of the year, probably trending up to $400,000 before the end. Which, amusingly enough, is not that surprising. That's also where it was about 3 years ago. So it dipped, and now it's on its way back. All right, so let's dig in here. Here's where I have to say the but moment. There are no guarantees. Not all data is recovered. On typical ransomware, you only get back about 65% of your data. That can be for any number of reasons. Encryption doesn't always just encrypt the data. Sometimes encryption actually attacks the file system. You can't recover it. There's no way to pull it back. Some of the ransomware actors are not professionals. They are giving you crappy decryptors, and they don't work that well. Anyone ever run a major transition in an IT environment where everything went perfect? Same thing on ransomware. Sometimes it just corrupts everything and it doesn't get you there. Also, a lot of the decryptors that you pay for and you get, especially if you argued them down through the use of a negotiator, they're going to include all sorts of other toys and presents for you that are going to make your life hell from now until the foreseeable end of time. That also tends to mess with the efficiency of being able to do your decryption. So that's a thing to keep in mind. Some of the big players like Akira, they're actually pretty good at helping you get your stuff unencrypted. But when you're playing with some of the smaller players, even when you pay, 65% tends to be about the average of what you get back. Now, 65% is better than 0% in most cases. But we want to understand that. In 1 in 5 cases, the decryptors that they sell you don't work. And ransomware people do not have customer service lines. I got your money. I did a proof of life with you. I showed you that I could decrypt the files. You paid the bill. I gave you the decryptor. It doesn't work. Cry more for me. Now, the good news about that is the good ones, they will go out of their way to ensure that's not true because they have a business model, and being able to be relied upon counts. Why? Because if I rely on the fact this will work, I'm more likely to pay you. If I think that I'm just done, why am I going to pay you?
If you get hit with a ransomware attack, do you know who it is? Like, do you know if it's one of the big good ones or who it is?
Like Akira will leave you a note that says, "Hi, I'm Akira, I'm here." And all your files that are encrypted will have a .Akira extension on them. Now, does that mean it's Akira? No, that can mean that's someone who got a hold of a crypto piece from Akira and they did it. But, you know.
There's also keys to each and every one of them that can pretty much
100%. 100%. The worst case scenario is you'll do this and then you'll find out exactly who it is because they'll go on ransomware.io or someplace like that and say, "I just leaked all your information and I'm Akira, raw," and that's the end of the day. So sooner or later, but yes, you'll find out because they want you to pay them. And they want you to be depressed because I am the mighty Akira and you know you can't beat me. So there we go. Repeat attacks are common. Remember that decryptor they're going to give you, you have no idea what's inside of it. Like my company, one of the things that we do is we actually take the decryptors, reverse engineer them, pull all the crap out of them, try and make sure they work, and then help people, fix themselves. Because half the time what you're running, it's not good, and it's full of more adware than WeatherBug was back in the day. 78% of customers are attacked again. A lot of that is because, especially if you sell me down, if you pay me less money than I wanted, I'm going to make that money up. I didn't get my $400,000, I only got $250,000, but I'll get another $70,000 by selling all of your information pre-routed to all of my affiliate networks where they can play with you from now until the end of time. Off we go. And of those, only 36 were hit by the same actor. A lot of the actors aren't going to come back at you. They're going to be careful. Now, with that being said, we're going to talk about double and triple extortion here in a minute because it's kind of fun. Why are they winning? None of this should surprise anyone. They're organized like a SaaS company. Well, they are a SaaS company. Ransomware as a service, software as a service, that's what they are. And they operate in the same way. They have the scalable infrastructure through the service providers. They have the command and control through the command and control networks. They have the people who are handling the initial access brokers. Like I said, by the time I talk to you as Akira, there have been 4 IABs that have rolled fast. The first one found you. The second one poked you to make sure you were soft. The third one came and did the initial exploitation. The fourth one came in, established a beachhead, did some lateral movement, and then handed you and the account passwords and the IP addresses off to me for me to do my job. Remember what I told you they're organized? This is not some guy doing this in Belarus. This is people all over the world doing this, and it is a business model to play with. Efficient marketing and partner, I just kind of talked about that. High revenue, low costs. How much does it cost me? I've got my software, and until someone finds a way to bust my software, I'm good. It's rinse and repeat. This is the perfect example of create once, use many, and once people start getting ahead of me, then I'll find a way to break it down and use it different. Now, the other part of this is, half the time, I don't even have to change my software. I just need to change the way that I'm getting into your environment. And again, proven success. Everyone, EDR, stop ransomware, right? I dare you, go onto your laptop right now and do a search for EDR bypass ransomware. And when it finally stops scrolling down, you'll see that this is an arms race. And like I said, there are people who that is their job every day, is to specifically figure out how to bust. When are signatures put out for signature-based tools?
after somebody's already been exploited.
After someone found a way to get there. Or someone found a way to get into his, and you and I checked, and we're vulnerable too, so we're going to fix ourselves. But that's the thing to keep in mind. A lot of these things, they run off of signatures, and signatures don't tend to get updated until I know there's a problem. And in this case, the ransomware people are much better dev testers than I am. So, off we go. Let's talk about our ransomware attack. Again, this is to be conversational. In this kind of a situation, this is a true customer scenario. Day 0, the company got hit. Something's going on. So they went after their insurance, they went after their legal firm, they got their breach coach, their incident response team. Day 1, business is down. And they've got the note that says, pay me $1 million. $1 million. Day 2 and 4, we're using a negotiation firm. They're going in. The ransomware team does a proof of life. In case you didn't know this, they'll do that. They'll prove to you that I can decrypt you. So therefore, what I have is meaningful, and it'll get there. Everyone's doing their work. Days 5 through 8, the affected organization is now trying their backups. They determined that this ransomware team actually knew what they did. The backups are corrupted. They're not any good. They have no capability. The only way they're going to recover is either to start over or pay the $1 million. They didn't pay $1 million. The ransomware negotiator got the price down some, but they got it kicked over. Day 16 in this case, they were back up. Now, the point on this, remember how I told you 22 is average? This is as perfect as it goes in a real ransomware. Everyone was civil, everyone got along, everyone paid, we didn't drag things out, we didn't do all the bad stuff. This is pretty much a beautiful sample of the way this works, but you're looking at weeks of downtime. That's where that $5 million comes from. Anybody know about the ransomware hit that's hit Jaguar right now? Jaguar? Oh, go look it up. They're losing millions of dollars a day. Well, all right, they've done that for decades with their electronic system. So but either way, we're going to get through it. So let's talk about that for just a second, just because we've got limited time to play. The first one here, initial access, you can look at it. This is what they're doing. They're doing the same things you expect everyone else to do. They're playing the game. They're getting in. They're working their way through identity. They're doing zero-day exploits. They're working with third parties. They're also exploiting third parties. There's an article that came out about a reporter at The Guardian, that came into The Guardian, where he was contacted by a Medusa player who wanted to, basically, you'll never have to work another day. Let me into your laptop. You work for the BBC. Let me into your laptop. I'll pay you a percentage of what they're after, and off we go. This is the kind of stuff you're looking at. Sorry, I didn't move that forward. So the next one we're going to talk about, EDR bypass. EDR is the savior. It's going to stop me. EDR is great, folks. I love EDR. My product even stares at the EDR to make sure that it's up and running. But that being said, there are many, many ways to get around them. Back to that signature conversation, that's where they're working. EDR really is your first and last bastion of hope. But that being said, the goal of these people is to get their way around it, because these days we have torn down our perimeters in the name of ubiquitous access. Your laptop is the firewall, the corporate firewall now. How is it a corporate firewall? It's because it's running an EDR. If I can get into it, I can probably ride that thing right back through your VPN, i.e. virus propagation network, into the core of your world, and we do great things together. Again, that guy that they went after in the BBC, he was just a reporter. And they were getting ready to pay him lots of money just so that he would click a link. Don't need to do anything else. Just click this link and play dumb, and I'll write you a check. To the point of they literally turned around and offered him half of a Bitcoin just to say yes. That's $50,000 they're paying him up front before he's done anything. All those are different ways that you get there. Bottom line is EDRs are great tools, and I'm not talking any smack about them. I love them. I've used them myself when I was a CISO. I think I had 3 different ones across my retail infrastructure because of the way it was working. They're there, but they're targeted, and you need to engage in resiliency and multi-layer defenses. Perfect example, anyone ever heard of a snow tire? The tires on your car work just fine, but in the snow, they make new ones that work better on snow and ice, so that when you're driving your family around in the winter, you're less likely to kill them. This is kind of the way this works too. Defense in depth is what ransomware needs to do, because you've got to have multiple layers of protection so that when one is bypassed, you've got someone else to catch it, or at least hopefully detect it. This is one I want to call out, to bring your own drivers. Y'all are aware of the fact that Microsoft has any number of drivers that are out there that are part of your operating system that they know are old, bad, and not good, but to pull them out is a lot of work, and they just don't. Or they do, but they don't actually block them from being reintroduced. And if you do this, they can blind your EDR and drive your traffic. Tell CrowdStrike to stare at that red door in the back. That is the coolest red door I've ever seen. If you see anyone walk in or out of it, yell at me. Don't pay any attention to what this guy's doing here in the corner. Yes?
The LED drivers for your keyboards, they all use ring 0.
My point being, they're out there. The bad guys know about it. And this is a very common exploit that we see right now, that people are coming in. They're using the operating system against itself. That's not even a 0-day, folks. That's an intentional piece of software. Next, data theft, data extortion, all this. Let's talk about extortion. Level 1 extortion was, I've encrypted your network. Give me the money or you don't have it back. That's what most people think of ransomware. Level 2 extortion, or dual extortion, is I've encrypted your network and I've stolen your data. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, follow my old Viking ancestors. Rob, then pillage. Don't burn it down before you get the data off, or you can't do anything with it. And that's what they do. That's actually a wonderful, if you want to, we'll talk about it. Pay attention to people shipping data out of your network in ways they shouldn't, because that is absolutely an indicator of imminent ransomware event. They're getting the data out so that then when they lock it down, they can do double extortion, which is pay me money or I'll sell your data. Oh, and by the way, pay me money or you can't have your environment back. The triple extortion is the one that's out there now, which is pay me money or I won't give you your environment back. Pay me money or I'll sell your data, and pay me money or I'm going to tell everyone that I logged into you and I stole all your stuff and I've locked your environment. Back to that, how many people actually got hit with ransomware? Once I publish your face on the Wall Street Journal colored in those little dots, everyone thinks those are cool pictures, but no one ever wants to see their face painted that way. This is kind of that same model. So this is the end goal for these folks when they're trying to get through it all. So what are we doing to protect? We're going to talk about some critical metrics. We're going to talk about the minimums that you do, and then we're going to talk about some programmatic expertise that we're going to dig in. The critical metrics, there's a lot of stuff up here, but these are the things that you need to understand. From a technology perspective, do I have things addressed across the board? Have I looked at the CIS ransomware benchmark? Do I know that I'm at least covering down on where these are at? Am I reading the stories every day about how people are getting owned? Am I paying really close attention to the CISA KEVs on the devices that I have, especially on my perimeter? I bring this up because Akira is having a day right now. These patches, these fixes were known 6, 8, 10 months ago, and people still haven't done them. To the point where they're flashing the BIOS on the boxes. I told some of you guys this, where when you set your firewall back to factory reset, they've overwritten the BIOS so that when it comes back up, it automatically establishes sessions and adds user accounts. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's awful, but it's pretty cool. Baselines, understand what your environment looks like, because if you don't know what normal is, it's really hard to tell someone they're doing something wrong. Alerting and monitoring. Make sure that you have kind of triaged what people are doing and that you've looked at your alerting and monitoring capabilities and you know what you can see. These are basics. I'm not even talking about the technologies. I'm just saying this is what you need to understand what your environment looks like. From a response, speed kills, you and them. That golden hour is called that for a reason. You need to have this. You need to understand it. You need to practice it. You need to leverage automation as much as you can from a response capability, because they're going to be moving at machine speed. Back to that low COGS, high reward. They've automated things. You need to do the same. Your processes, you need to understand them. Third parties. How many people in this room do not do any business, do not leverage a single SaaS product, do not have any service provider giving them help? Exactly. If you're not including your third parties, or at least considering them as you're doing this, you're leaving a huge piece of everything that you've got out. Your HR data from an identity theft is a huge piece. How many people out there are using insert SaaS provider here for HR? How do you know that your data is safe in transit, et cetera? And make them give you your audit reports and everything else. Again, from the teamwork, this one really comes down to, from my days in the Army, practice like you fight like you practice. You've got to do your testing, you've got to do this, and you've got to make sure it works. So many people tell me I've got a great backup structure. You're going to tell me when I'm out of time, right? They're going to tell you you've got a great backup structure. Bottom line is, like I told you, no, they don't. They've never really tried to do this. They've got a great plan on paper that they put up on the shelf 2 years ago after the auditor told them they've had to have it. They've never pulled it down. They've never actually tried to do it. They just assume that all this stuff works. And you know what? Here's the worst part of it. It may absolutely work. But if none of your people know how to execute the plan, then does it work? So this is important stuff. And then down there from performance, this is really where, when you're doing all these other things, understand what good looks like for you, understand where you need to get better, understand how you're going to play these games. Does this look surprising to anyone, or does this look a whole lot like all the stuff you've been being told on what to do on IT for the last 20 years? Cyber hygiene, folks, is still number one across the board. It does not require anything huge and new. Ransomware is exploiting a set of circumstances to a very specific end, but the way they get in is the same way they've done it all this time. It's people, process, technology. Unfortunately, a lot of it is layer 8 in the OSI, which is the meat layer, which is you and me. People clicking on things. Folks, phishing is still one of the number one ways that people get into your environment. Mm-hmm. So, any questions on this? Yeah?
In terms of businesses surviving
Mm-hmm.
ransomware attack, even if they do pay the money and they get 65%-ish or whatever, how many businesses don't survive?
Well, again, we're going to go back to how much money do people ask for. Where businesses go out of business doesn't tend to be from the ransomware. It tends to be from the fact that they're not resilient operationally. We're not talking IT anymore, folks. We're just talking business processes. The ransomware actor is going to ask you for a percentage of your revenue. They're not going to try and kill you. Why? Because if I kill you, I can't come back and hit you again. This is a business of repeat business. So where really a lot of it comes down to is, do you have, ransomware is really ugly to startups. I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a war chest. I don't have the ability to continue to live and fight and play. I had a customer that they're retail, and somehow they went down and they weren't up for 7 months. I'm a former retail CISO. I'm looking at them going, well, what do you sell? Because most retail organizations are living hand to mouth, day to day. They don't have huge amounts of money and cash to play this, but they had some really resilient processes where they could do things the old way through manual reconciliation, all those bits and pieces, and that let them keep their doors open. But again, the good news about them, I guess, was the fact that they had had a whole lot of tech debt and had been doing things the old way for a long time and had only recently modernized. So when they got hit, they just kind of went, okay, so back to last Tuesday, and they played it that way. I don't recommend that as a survival strategy, by the way, but it worked for them. So there's your answer. There is no answer, but it really comes down to how have you practiced this? How have you figured this out? Now, let's talk about how you can get there. Minimums. Everyone, read to me the first word on the right-hand side of that first gray block. Immutable, please. One of the first things that someone does in a Windows environment is they try and run VSS admin, shadow, delete, all quiet. Anyone know what VSS admin is? It's the tool that Windows uses to make all the backups of your files so you can roll back to former save points, you can roll back to former versions of a document, all that. They go in and they delete all of your backups. It's not hard. It's a piece of code on the box that they can run. And by doing it shadow and quiet and all that, you won't know. I know when I'm looking for it because it's very indicative of ransomware. But it could also be very indicative of a sysadmin and they're trying to clean up disk space and get, space back off disk off of old backups that are more than 3 weeks old, et cetera. So there's a legitimate reason to do it. But immutable backups. A robust backup strategy is your best single solution that I'm going to say to be able to recover. Not resist, but recover. Get your data, get it out of your hands, get it in someone else's hands where it is safe, where it is protected, where it cannot be changed, where you have access to it. And please don't be like a customer I had the other day who told me that, when you got anyone here from Veeam? I talked to a guy from them today. They were so proud of themselves because they just had ransomware and they just invested in a Veeam backup solution. We looked on their hard drive, on their drive up there, they had 1 million files, not one of them bigger than 17 kilobytes. Don't ask me how. They were pulling a portion of the header file only, and they were then going off of the number of files they had in the cloud, not the size of the value they had in the cloud. No recovery capability, paid the ransom. This is what I'm saying. Please. It's like when I was an engineering student in college. This is the problem. What do I know? What do I assume? What am I solving for? Do the work, validate the answer. I have a solution. It's going to save me. I assume that it's all going up there. Validate it, check it, test it, work it, do the things with it so that you know it will work on the bad day. The next one, identity platform. If I had to say something else, please, and no one wants to do this. If you're not running MFA on all external access, then you will be talking to me for recovery. Here to tell you, right now, all these things that Akira is doing, the reason they're doing it is because there's vulnerabilities in place and no one's running MFA. Because people don't like MFA. They don't want a token. They don't want it. Okay, I don't want to pay ransomware either. And I don't want my company to stop to exist. This is the stuff that matters. Why? We all know why identity solutions are good. We all know they handle this. They've got better auditability. They've got better security. They give you the ability to play rollback, RBAC, all these kind of things. They have MFA in play. These are all good things. And almost every customer that I work with from a recovery perspective, the first word out of their mouth is, well, we were going to roll out MFA next month. Why do you think you got hit this month? I'm not trying to be smart about it. I'm just saying this is ubiquitous across. The next one down there, perimeter defenses. If you don't manage your attack surface, you cannot be proud or sad when someone takes advantage of it. Don't show the great wide internet anything more than you have to. Control it, log it, audit it, do all the things that you need to. Your firewall is the face you show the bad people in the world. make sure it's pretty. And make sure that you're paying attention. If you're going to patch anything in your environment, make sure that your firewall, especially if you're running a Palo or something like this, it's dual purposed, it's your VPN concentrator, it's all these other things, please make sure that you are reading their logs every morning and finding out when there's a problem. Please make sure you're looking at the CISA KEVs and that you have a query for Palo Alto every day so that when someone pops up with one of these, you're aware of it and you address it. Don't put it off. It would not be being released if someone was not actively exploiting it in the wild. And your turn will come, ladies and gentlemen. Last one is endpoint protection. That one's a different color because that one matters. If you did nothing else here, layer your endpoints. Get a good EDR on it. Make sure you've got good AV. Make sure that patching's happening. Make sure that you're doing all this stuff. Make sure that you've got other applications and tools in place that will cover down to where you've got the watcher is watching, the watcher is being watched by the watcher. Because again, all I got to do is get around that EDR, and I showed you slides on how common that is. And like I said, I double dare you. EDR bypass ransomware. You can search it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But that is still one of the most critical points. I had a customer the other day that, unbeknownst to me, had removed all of their EDR clients because they were getting ready to change to another one. Getting ready to change to another one. Not changing to a new one, getting ready to. Anybody want to guess what happened? I got a phone call. Actually, I didn't have a phone call. I called them because I was watching them, and I told them, are you aware of the fact that you were under ransomware attack as we speak? And the answer was the only thing they had running was a freeware AV tool and me. Don't do that, please. I don't want to meet you that way. It's a really bad night to meet you at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night because you're crying, and I can't help you. The next one, the programmatic rules to live by. Again, these are not. This is GBC. You want to stand or want to guess what GB stands for? God, basic controls. This came from one of my customers. And I don't know any way to better summarize it than what he said, so I use this as one of my analogies. Again, cyber hygiene, we talked about that. You've got to do the things. You've got to know your environment. You've got to figure out, you've got to prioritize what matters and make sure that you're applying your resources in a meaningful fashion. Risk management, either some things matter more than others or everything matters the same. And if everything matters the same, unless you're a government that has access to print your own money, you're going to let things fall. Because if everything is important, that means nothing's important. Understand it, take the steps, do the things you've got to do there. That next one, risk management, again, what matters? What matters? If you're not going to do anything else, anyone here, we've all done disaster recovery, business continuity, we establish our tier 1 tools, and we say that no matter what, these are the ones that have to come up first. Like, I don't know, my Active Directory has got to come up before I can worry about people's laptops. The same thing's here for ransomware. And if nothing else, if you've got limited funds, limited capabilities, concentrate on making those things as bulletproof as you can. A lot of people invest a lot of money in silver bullets and then find out they don't have problems with werewolves. I'm here to tell you, these are your werewolves. This is what lets you make money and stay in business, so please focus on them. The third one there, vendor risk management. I said it before, I'll say it again. If they plug into your network, if you give them your data, if you give them the ability to process your data, if you do any of this, I can outsource execution. I cannot give away responsibility. The best I can do is write a contract with enough penal clauses in it that whenever they do something bad, I can stand up in front of the judge, my board, my customers, and say, oh, no, I did all these things, and I can hope that I distract them long enough to not put me out of business. But you need to make sure your third parties are doing the things they need to do. And last but not least, go beyond signature-based. When is a signature created? After the bad thing happened. So if you're just relying on signature-based things, that means 0 days are going to get you. You need to move into heuristics. You need to move into predictives. You notice there's 2 letters that I did not say that everyone says these days, AI. I'm not telling you to go playing the AI game. I'm just telling you find layered solutions that address one another. If the signature fails, something should be able to recognize the fact that someone rattled my door handle, someone tapped on my window, someone's turned my camera off, and my dog is sleeping because someone gave it sleeping pills and a steak. These are not normal circumstances that would cause me to have confidence that my house is safe. You need to be able to look at these things and recognize this. Because again, this is a business. The 3 things, they are that good, they are that organized, and the basics still count. Ladies and gentlemen, what questions do you have? I said one of my prerequisites is this, someone's going to fight with me. So someone Someone come up. Bring me some story. Bring me something you want to argue about. Or just that you want to talk about. Come on. You three back there. I gave you warning like 10 minutes before this started. Shoot. Like I said, it's a bad day. I'm sorry that we have to talk about this, but we do.
Most of ours is, we do get ransomware. We have, our EDR and stuff like that, but we also do, heuristics and, pattern, for patterns and stuff like that. But, ransomware is probably one of our worst nightmares, so, yeah. Calling you would probably be, on my last.
Recent study from a bunch of CISOs was 98% of them said it's not a question of when, I'm sorry, it's not a question of if. These are the guys sitting in the chairs. We got this one.
What does Halcyon do?
Halcyon, well, congratulations. This would be self-serving if I didn't say this. I am an application that was born in the days of the Pipeline Ransomware Act. We ride behind the EDR. I'm attached to the kernel level. I do a number of things to prevent ransomware from happening. I do a number of things to alert you when the predecessor events are happening. I love the EDR to the point where I actually watch the EDR and make sure that it's up and functional. And then the thing that you'll hear about us, on the bad day where the bad guy gets onto the box and manages to actually throw encryption, I intercept keys and I send them up to the internet so that then I can turn around and help you build a decryptor, bust that symmetric key down into a public and private key, and then do remote uninstall of the ransomware from there so that you don't have to pay the ransom. I have a warranty that says if I don't do this, I'll take basically I'll take a look at your contract value, and then I give you IR services for recovery, based upon that. But that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I've never paid a ransom. I live behind the EDR purposefully. Yes?
So, you see a lot of people that talk about, once you get hit, right, obviously there's a loss of money, there's a loss of business.
$5 million.
And everyone says loss of reputation, right? But with so many people coming out every day getting hit with ransomware, is that last point just kind of moot? Because if everyone's getting hit, right, what reputation loss do you have?
Everyone remembers when Target got hit and their stock price dropped and then it came right back up? There is that theory, which is there's no such thing as bad press. And I'm sorry if there's anyone here from Target. I'm not trying to pick on you. It's just a good example. So there is that. Most of that $5 million number is not really anyone ever play with the fair risk analysis method. These are the secondary factors of loss that come in. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about you can't sell your product. You can't do your thing. Your people are sitting at home. You're paying rent on the building. You're paying electricity, and no one can do the things. So yes, you're right that there is that point where, does this matter? But the numbers don't lie.
And then also, you talk a lot about EDRs,
Mm-hmm.
but wouldn't it be safe to say that you're better off having an EDR and an NDR?
NDR is a phrase that these days has become really squishy because there are so many, but an enforcement capability.
PCAPs of everything and looking at every bit of traffic.
So layered defenses are always better, like I told you before. Like I said, I'd be self-serving if I didn't say that because that's what I do. But that being said, you absolutely want those. One of the biggest things that you need to be looking at from that perspective is you need an automation capability. You need an automatic response capability to where you operate at human speed. I operate at human speed. That's what we do. Attackers are operating at machine speed. They're operating at scale. If you can't operate as quickly as they do, one of my things I do is I let you know when I see someone trying to put files in places they shouldn't out on the great wide internet. Do I block it? No, I don't. I send a message to your SIM, which hopefully is attached to your SOAR, which is hopefully attached to either your firewall or your EDR, which is going to go, ooh, I saw that thing come flying through. I'm going to isolate that box, lock that account, change that password, and send a Sev1 ticket to the security team saying, ooh. That's kind of what you got to do. And to that point, that's back where we're talking about understanding where your exposure is, because you want to buy the tools that are going to give you the capabilities to intercept. I may not be able to stop it. Like I said, I had a customer the other day that happened. I saw them light up. I saw them fall off the internet. I finally got them cracked open. 3.5 boxes were encrypted. Why? Because it was weird stuff, and it got in and it encrypted, and all their boxes were not encrypted, and the bad guys had literally shut them off because they realized they couldn't encrypt them, and they were trying to exfil data. how did that work? Why did that work? Because again, they had the layers in place where they basically frustrated the bad guy. And once the bad guy started trying, when the bad guy hits the encrypt button, folks, that's Armageddon. There's no hiding that. They now know the bad time is coming, so you've got to move quick. And in this case, we pushed them into a corner, and they had to just do the next best thing they could. That happens by doing what you're talking about, layering that in. It doesn't have to be NDR anymore. God, I don't want to necessarily push DLP, but in almost any endpoint capability's got that blocking, quarantining, all those kind of capabilities in it. What we used to call an NDR is now spread out across about 15 dozen technologies. So, anyone else? Back there.
So, being basically anti-ransomware company, y'all must be hit yourselves quite a bit from these other, groups. What do y'all see from your own company that can help prevent this kind of stuff? Because y'all must be getting hit all the time because you're hurting their business.
I told you. At the end of the day, it really comes down to defense in depth and understanding your world. And if you don't take your security seriously and almost don't say yes. We used to work for the Federal Reserve. I had a director from one of the 3-letter agencies told me as a security guy, Chris, the most important thing you do is say no all the time and then make them convince you to say yes. You don't do it from a mean-spirited perspective. You define a certain number of rules that you live by, and these are your non-negotiables, and then you make them convince you otherwise. You're driving business, but part of, in your case, driving business is protecting investment, and off you go. So that's really where this comes down to. Know the face that you're sharing, know what you're doing, and then lock yourself down across the board, and then layer your defenses. All my boxes run my tool. It better, kind of a scenario, but this is just what you've got to do, and you got to play that game. I can't tell you what to do 100% of the time, because sooner or later, I'm going to get hit by ransomware, I'm sure. I mean, it happens. I know the internet is a pen test. Right now, all of you are getting hit. Congratulations. And you're in here listening to me and not doing your day job. Shame on you. Who else?
That concludes.
All right.
If you have any questions or what have you want to come on up, please do. We have to set up for the next.
I'll be over to the side.